Okay, everybody seated? Perfect. There has arguably been somewhat of a boom in recent years, at least in Sweden, with different organizations and initiatives around queer cultural heritage. So we thought it would be nice to gather, share wisdoms, since many of us are coming from a background of grassroots movements or activism or cultural workers rather than tied to institutions. And that, of course, comes with a lot of choices and directions to take. We have, sorry, I had a logistical thing I missed. Sorry. Before? Okay, cliffhanger. There has been questions around cash. The closest ATM is Hagakyrkan, Prinsgatan. Hagabion. Or you could go to a store, buy something and ask for more cash about that. Ja, det var det. Ja. Okay, so we have Augustas Čičelis and Viktorija Kolbešnikova here guiding us through this discussion with different archives and museums. They are the co-creators of Išgirsti, a Lithuanian queer archive and project space in Vilnius. Welcome up. Thank the high. And you could present the panel. Yeah.
Hi, hello everyone. It's very nice to be here. We became part of Nordic network now, and we are here for the third time, and it's a pleasure to be. And we feel that these conferences are being organized by archivists because it's very well organized. Yeah, so today we will talk about Swedish queer archives, and those who've been yesterday in the museum already saw an example of queer archive activation, and we're happy that we will have more time to discuss your local initiatives.
So we're not from Sweden, but we've been here actually 2.5 years ago, and we've got to meet some of the initiatives, so we know most of them actually from before, so it was very nice and it was very inspiring in our own way for our own archive. And so we would like to welcome and invite them here, the speakers, and then have some short so Anna Linder from SACMI, that's Swedish Archive for Queer Moving Images. Olov Kriström from curator, that's Archive and Library of Queer Movements. Then Johan Sundell from Rosa Brus, that's Archive of Queer Sound. And Arne Öberg from the Unstraight Museum. And we are sending our best wishes and get well soon to Funny Livdotter from Homografiska Museum, who should have joined us today, but is unfortunately unable. So best wishes to Funny. And applause as well. So now we have like 4 minutes for each of you to present. 3, but we are missing one out. So we're using the time. So up to 4 minutes, preferably 3, to just present yourself and your initiatives. In no particular order, so just feel free.
I just thought that if this I would know. Okay, 4 minutes. I will speak slow.
My name is Olov Kriström, representing CURAB, the Archives and Library of the based in Gothenburg, but collecting materials from all over the world. If I should introduce CURAB, one way to start words in our name. So we're the Library of the Queer Movement, the Archives, question mark. You said that archivists are well organized. Thank you. I could say that CURAB is several well organized. We don't have neat rows of boxes with everything. Some plastic bags with stuff. We have some things in corners lurking about. But it's also, the question mark around archives could also be interpreted as the traditional archive, as Tina was talking about, could be seen as a means of control over information. And maybe that is what we do, but it's not what we want to do. So we try to be mindful of how we manage our collections and access and accessibility to them. So that's the archive question mark. Maybe it's just a heap of stuff. A library.
Can you just take it?
Okay.
It was fun. Either one. Can you use any other one?
So it's quite short, so.
So library question mark. We have books, we have magazines, but you can't take them home, as you can with most libraries. Queer is a wide term. Our statutes very comfortably describes it as an umbrella term encompassing lesbian, gay, transgender, intersex, bisexual, asexual experiences and existences. So queer could be this critical revolutionary movement, which we might be, but we also try to be inclusive. Everybody can come and look at our stuff or donate stuff. And movements, question mark. The queer movement isn't a movement, of course. It's several movements, a diverse movement. And we also collect materials from private individuals. So if you're moving, you're a movement. But
Yeah, so my name is Anna Linder, and my voice is really cracking today. But I represent the Swedish Archive for Queer Moving Images that was founded 2017. Physical here in Gothenburg, but we work nationally and internationally. And I would love to start to say it's really a collective, even if I'm sitting here. So I have people here that I want to present. So I don't know where to start, but Inga, filming, working in the programming and also right now communication. And we have also Silas here, working a lot with sound and technician things and editing things. And somewhere we had Mats. I don't know if Mats still is here. Mats was the trombonist in Queer Orchestra here, working with economical and like Excel document and that kind of things. And then several more, like Sanna and Clara. You can wave. Sanna make all beautiful signs when we have sucking events with drawing. Clara and Sanna also volunteering since a long time. And we have also Sandra Linnell here. Yeah, working with the archive group. Also, we have some artists like Safira. Everyone here is Conny. Yeah, the moving images we work with in a Swedish context. So we try to collect that in different ways. Mostly we are a living archive, I should say, because we write all the time. So it's how we collect. If we do an event, for example, we collect, and it's a way to make it visible. Because of the moving images, it's so fucking expensive to collect. So it's about servers, it's about big databases and that kind of stuff, and it's really, really the difficult thing. So now we have bought a Finnish database that we try to keep up, but it's still public. So you have to ask us to get to know the archive. So I don't want to say so much more, so I gave it to Johan.
Hello everyone, my name is Johan Sundell and I'm one of 3 co-founders of the Archive of Pink Noises. Is it too loud? Should I talk like this? No? Okay, it's good. The archive was founded in 2019-2020 and it's a queer sound archive where we collect and archive all kinds of queerness in sonic format or queer cultural production. And we do this with the view of sound as a bearer of history. So we're interested in the specific materiality of the sonics or the oral dimensions of queerness. Like what does queerness sound like? And we do this in collaboration with a range of different actors, like other archives, artists, activists, and scholars. And we've done this also through collecting, archiving, readings, and public events. And by doing this, we want to explore what a queer archive can do or be or sound like. I think I'll keep it that short because I think a lot of the other questions that we're going to discuss will sort of lead into the ways in which the different ways in which we've worked or not worked. Yeah. Thanks.
My name is Arne Öberg and I'm coming from the Unstraight Museum. Our board is located in Stockholm, but we are actually a quite global organization when it comes to collecting stories and unstraight stories, to be more specific. Our museum organization started 2008 during Europride in Stockholm, but officially 2011 we changed name to the Unstraight Museum. Our goal is to be a digital museum for the moment with pop-up exhibitions, but we are in a phase when we are discussing what shall we do in the future, which part should our members take in our production of exhibition, etc. So we are in a very open discussion, to be absolutely honest to you. And I think it's very important to have those part that is about finance and the goal for the organization. And I will return to this discussion later. I think I'll stop there and make space for good discussions instead.
Thank you. Very efficient. Too efficient, actually. So we have a 3-minute break now. No, I'm joking. We'll discuss more probably, and then, as most of you were right, you saw some questions already, so you know where we're going. And then, so we'll speak in some sections now, and then at the end we'll have also some space to discuss in groups as well. So, so to start with. Maybe you could elaborate on how you have started. So what have you been doing before as well? Your colleagues, maybe what have been doing before, and then has the concept of your archive changed throughout the time? So anyone who wants to start.
I can start. Yeah, so Kreivės was founded in 2017, just a couple of weeks after SACMI. And it was founded by me and some other people who, most of us had been active in queer movements, doing activist stuff for several years, and had been both collecting materials and producing materials, like flyers and banners and everything. For my part, at least, people coming to Curab might have other motives and motivations driving them. But for my part, I've been very inspired by learning about queer history in my activism. But it's not always been easy to find. It's been relying on like getting to know someone who was active or who has materials at home, so we can read the pamphlet from the 70s and learn something valuable for your activism. And I wanted to make that process easier for people to find the traces of the activists that come before them. So that was my motivation. Other people might have other ideas. And I could also say Curab is a grassroots organization. We have a board of 6 people, and then membership-based activities. So what Curab does is very much up to the people in the board and the members. It has shifted somewhat. It started out quite like material-based, collecting paper, other materials, because that was the starting point of the people starting Curab. Then we have been moving out into collecting oral histories, other sort of alternative ways of gathering the stories of the history, because we have gotten to understand that, okay, not everybody wrote pamphlets in the 70s. There are other stories as well, and people coming to Curab with an interest in talking about queer history as well. So it's been shifting and is continually evolving based on what the people in Curab want to do.
Can you maybe elaborate a bit how one becomes a member and what membership involves?
Yeah, anyone can become a member if you agree to our statutes. And there's no obligations. You can become a member and not do anything. Just give us the money. So 1 year membership costs 100 Swedish crowns, and you have to fill in a form that we can gather your personal data for information and such. Some slips for membership if you ask for them in the merch table if you like to become a member. And if you become a member right now, plugging, you pay 100 crowns for the last months of 2024 and 2025. So you get newsletters with all our activities, and you can come to we've been irregular with our membership meetings, but once we've slept after this conference, the idea is to get membership meetings up and going again. So that's basically it. Organizations can join. Even if it's a huge organization, they only get 1 vote at the annual meeting. And it costs a little more for organization memberships, but that's possible as well.
Yeah, so the starting point of SACMI was really, I'm not an archivist at all, I'm a curator, and I remember now that I wrote something about the curator as a collector, a text. So it's also based from my own savings and my own collections from the beginning, but I never ever thought of starting my own archive. But I used to work at Filmforum in Stockholm, so it's an archive for experimental film and video art, and I worked there as a producer and curator for 8 years. So when I did a research at Valand here about queer experimental feminist films, I was so kind of stoned that I had to find everything mouth to mouth, because it was not an archive anywhere of moving images in that way. So it was so clear that all the archives I visited, or distributors of film, the best ones was the archives and distributors that have queer people in the staff, because they made their own collections inside the collection. But nowhere I could see any queer film archive focusing nationally on queer moving images. So I know at that point, the same time as SACME started, I met people in Canada, and Canada is really my favorite country to mention because of experimental film and distribution of video art, and as a distributor. So there I've met people that started a Canadian archive focusing on only queer Canadian films. So we were talking a lot in the beginning, but the thing was that I somehow didn't know if it was possible to have a Swedish one, because we don't have the tradition here to distribute in that way. And in film form, I built the queer archive in film form. So it's my kind of leaves for them. So I could start with that at least. And then I started the archive by talking to people in the community. So I did 17 or 19 interviews with queer filmmakers or artists working with moving images, to ask everyone, is it possible? Do you want an archive? What should the archive be? Is it of interest for you to have an archive in Sweden? So it was, the starting point was support from Kulturbryggan to just ask around, make these interviews. So it's how it started, and almost all of them are still in SACME in different ways. And the first project group was based on people from that period. So yeah, I think it was that. And then someone had to take responsibility, like for organize it in somehow. So I took it on in my own company, like my private company. Yeah, so it started like that.
Yes, as I said before, I'm one of 3 co-founders of the Archive of Pink Noises, the other 2 being Berit Berglund and Anna Čičelis. And all 3 of us, before we formed the archive, were involved in different ways with the queer feminist scene, and as well as the non-queer experimental music / sound art scene. Anna was the initiator of the project. And they, before this archive, they worked with Lesbisk Makt och Lesbiskt Arkiv, Lesbian Power and Lesbian Archive. And contacted me and Berit, who had been colleagues since 2013, where we had a shared, we call it a queer noise project, Zero Conversion, which is a transdisciplinary art and sound project where we explore what happens when you combine queerness as unwanted desire with noise as unwanted sound. What happens when you combine these 2 kinds of unwantedness in artistic practices in different ways. We've done performances and theoretical writing and just noise. So I don't remember actually how Anna got to know of us 2, but somehow they contacted us and asked and said, like, hey, I've had this vision of having a broader queer archive that is specifically aimed towards the sonics of queerness. And the material is wasn't meant to be limited in any ways, really. It could be like poetry or journalism or sound art or music or just read text or something like that. Anything really. Yeah, could you, what did you do before? I think that's about it.
Thank you. I just want to be honest with you. I wasn't part of the Unstraight Museum when we started, so I'm just trying to return and give you a short story of it. But we started as under the Article 1 of the United Nations, the Declaration of Human Rights. And it was a cooperation between a lot of museums in Stockholm during Europride. And we tried to push them to front the queer part of their archives or their stories in the museums. And it ended up in a short trip in Eastern Europe, which was very successful. So most of our exhibition has been outside Sweden, not in Sweden, which is a little bit odd to be a museum in Sweden. But our board is today about 7 people. And our main activities is to make exhibitions. Most of them are pop-up exhibition. And one part of our organization is educating. And it is actually Pia that is our main person that make those educations. And I don't think I have to introduce you to Pia, but Pia make a very interesting methodology of how to tell us the story about the queer people or the queer perspective. Is it the right? Yeah, it's good enough. But I think it's very important to understand those ground for our organization. 2011 then we actually started the Unstraight Museum, and we have been very active outside Sweden. A lot of work has been done in Vietnam. We have been in those Eastern European countries, as I told you before. And the latest collection of unstraight stories has been in Turkey and Egypt. And in Egypt it was a very successful exhibition this summer in a restaurant or club place called Trädgården in Stockholm. And if you want to know more, Davis is sitting here as the technical expert for this event. So ask him about it. It's very interesting.
Great, thank you. You've touched a bit already about activation, and in general, I think your archives I know are programmed to be active and activated. Could you tell us more about your reach and outreach, your methods, and maybe some examples of activating the archive and the material in it?
Yes, I can start very shortly. The Unstraight Museum, we created a database which is absolutely open, and every one of you can access this database under our webpage. So it's very open, but it's not good enough as I see it. To have an open database is a very important part, but I believe to tell a story you have to rethink and collect and make it properly to make a good story. So it's just not one story that is good enough as I see it, but the database is very important to make it accessible, or you could look at it. But I believe if you have ambition to start a museum, as we had or have, we have to really rethink how to make those stories more available for a bigger audience or a bigger crowd around the world. So we have to continue this work in our organization, but I believe that the database was a very big, important start. So I pass on.
Yeah, so we knew from the very beginning that we wanted to not be work with the format of the archive in a traditional sense of only collecting and archiving material, like old material, but we also wanted to be an active participant in producing new queer archival material. And like the given way of doing that was to reach out to the community in all kinds of ways. both the queer community, but also different actors that are like bigger institutions that are straight but well-intentioned, or which is our experience that the most institutions have been very welcoming of initiatives. So we not only wanted to collect old material, but we also wanted to produce new material and to curate it in different ways. For example, we had between, I don't know, some of you were at Stadsmuseet last night, where we had like this small booth where we presented 5 site-specific sound works that we curated and commissioned for 5 different artists between 2020 and 2022. And for us, that's it's a much more fun way of engaging with the queer community and to create new kinds of connections based on different themes. So the different forms that we have like live streams. We also had physical releases, commissioned site-specific sound works. And we also had it in different spaces, like in dance spaces like Weld in Stockholm, for example. Cinema and trans festivals like Transfest and Cinema Queer, art halls like Konsthall C, an anarchist radio station, academic research projects, universities and conferences, and so forth. So it's been a combination of these kinds of collaborations where we use social media, word of mouth, external arrangements and collaborations with other actors. But we haven't had any like particular methods when we've done this, and we're targeting like a broader queer audience, and to some extent also a straight audience in the cases where we collaborate with non-queer institutions or actors, usually a bigger institution.
Yeah, I think I go back to the interviews. It was a big thing in the interviews that people don't know each other in the queer community of making moving images in Sweden. So everyone wanted a platform for meetings and networking, and also to see each other's work. So I think that's still one of the things we try to do all the time. Somehow it's. I had also a question that time to everyone that can you mention 5 Swedish queer films? And they couldn't. And that's strange somehow now, but it was like that when we asked around. And I think we have, I don't know how many titles we have now, and I know it's much more out there. It's like 300-400. So how that happened really, it was like just laying there somehow, and how to activate all these films. So we do it in different ways. We have a lot of events. We have our own series called Nightfall, where we work with one person to present the whole spectrum of work, and always connected to a talk. We have the one we had on Thursday now called Cherry Pick, where we do some classicals from the history of queer moving images in Sweden, also connected to talks. And this Thursday we had the premiere of a 32 years old film that have never been shown public. So we had a panel of 5 people from that period singing, talking, and yeah, it was amazing. The director haven't seen the films since 32 years. The person who stopped it once was there in the panel. It was amazing. And then we also have the Queer Moving History project, where we curate programs to make the history visible in different ways. And one of the programs we made together with Curab about the camp in Sweden of all the prides and all the first movements in that, activist movements also a lot. And that kind of programming is, as I can see, really successful in itself, because then it's a program that can be shown all the time. So they are booked quite often. And I think we're up to 5 now. We just talked in our table about queer punk. We did a queer punk program, and that kind of
minorities inside the minority. And now we have a program coming up with Sami queer films that we work on. And then I think the harder thing is to get people leave material to us, because no one wants to go backwards in their practice. So that's the big challenge. So for that we made a timeline called Gothenburg's Queer History. I don't know, moving history. It's a timeline anyway, and it's only connected to Gothenburg movies. And it's now, I think, 130 titles just in that database. So where you can go in and look for. So we have an idea of doing this in other cities. So now we're working with Malmö to make the same kind of timeline for Malmö, and then suddenly people give us material, because then they have it published immediately by themselves online. Yes, I think we activate in different, and also we have a podcast. So when we have these talks, we record everything, and some of them get to be a podcast. So we also activate it later on with the mouse, like the talks become also an archive in itself, because we do a homepage for every podcast, and then people can leave material in another way. So they want it as a homepage almost. So we can do the biographies, the backstage film things, or other material that you don't see otherwise. So then every podcast become an archive itself. Yes, I think it's a lot of activating in the way of collecting. So it's not.
So I could start answering your question by talking a bit more about the like physical practicalities of our archive, because we have quite large collections, and did already from the start have too much materials for our own good. So we quite soon developed a collaboration with the regional state archives in Gothenburg, and made a deal with them that we could keep our collections in their shelves. But it was we didn't hand over control of the collection, but just rent or got to lend a couple of shelves. So our collections are mainly based at the regional state archives in Gothenburg, which is really good because it's in a safe place, it's climate controlled, it's proper archival conditions. But the down part of that arrangement is that it's behind lock and key. People can't come and browse the shelves. People can't discover things they don't know they're looking for. So they have to contact us at Curab and say, oh, I want to look at this book, or maybe this theme. I'm interested in lesbian bars in the 80s. And then we have to think, oh, what materials do we have that we can bring to the reading room at the regional state archives? So accessibility there's quite a big threshold on making the collections that we have active in the sense of being used. We're looking for some sort of space of our own to make this easier, so that we can have parts of our collections that aren't as fragile or special, more available, but we don't have that at the moment. So the activating of the collections we try to do with collaborations, like Anna mentioned, the Queer Moving History collaboration that we did. We also have some moving images that we share with Sakmi. And then we make exhibitions with in collaboration with museums. We had an exhibition in Mölndal City Museum, a town just outside of Gothenburg, and had an exhibition also at the University Library in collaboration with the Gender Studies Department at the library. We try to do outreach where we make some cherry picks from our collections and exhibit them, and also hold lectures and presentations at Pride events or archival conferences or things. So we try to like open a window into these closed stacks that we have, so that people might be inspired to come and look for something. But another aspect of activating the archive is also not just activating like the output, but activating the input in the archive, involving people in making them feel comfortable that this is their archive, so that they can share whatever they want to share. So we've been trying to do that partly by these exhibitions, just showing, hey, we're queer, come to us. But more specifically, we've been targeting some focus groups. We had a volunteer working with newcomers, doing interviews, oral history interviews, with newly arrived migrants, collecting their stories, just taping them and transcribing the interviews. And we also have quite an active collaboration with the LGBT senior group in Gothenburg, where we have memory cafes together with them, so that they can come. This is an already existing group that we're collaborating with. So their members come to these cafe events and can bring some artifact, some item that brings up memories for them. And then during this cafe event, talk about those memories. And we've been doing interviews with seniors as well. So we've been trying to, because like I said, not everybody writes down their histories. And there are, when we just depend on like getting stuff from people who want to leave stuff with us, it's quite skewed and biased, we've realized, towards certain kinds of people that feel their lives are important and have been collecting large libraries for themselves and feel that, oh, this is important, I want to leave this to history. But other people haven't had the resources or the trust or the, they haven't collected their histories in that way. So we've been trying to make it possible for all kinds of histories to be shared at Cura.
I just want to add a very important question. It's that we as a museum organization, we are not collecting artifacts. And I think that what you're doing in Curab is extremely important, because it's a question or issue that we really have to solve if we are getting more and more questions about how to deal with those very important stories and things that people are willing to give us. So for the moment we are saying no to them, but I hope we will find some solution in Sweden if we are looking into our future.
I just wanted to add, I forgot to say about the video piece we showed yesterday. That's a way of activating also. It's a piece from '94, and it was really debate on it at that point. It was shown in the gallery in '97, and that person, Kai Rennes, came to Sápmi when we just started and had a traumatized memory from Gothenburg at that time when it was screened. So many people were angry, writing letters. It was sending into the newspaper, to the gallery, and Kai didn't have I couldn't read them really. We didn't want to read them and didn't save them because it was so harsh and so hard on that. And we have tried to find things, but we can't find it. It's only the press article from the show, but nothing of these letters we can't find. So what we did was to ask Kai to try to write about this memory and what happened. So it's you can find the text outside here on the table, So it was the first time we showed it yesterday, and we will see if we find more ways to show it, because this period in Gothenburg was really hard for gay people, and it was the bögknackarstaden. So this was in that period where it was very hard to be here and out, and this was a sexual work also that Kai showed. So
I could just add briefly regarding what Arne said about them not collecting material stuff. We by no means claim to want the monopoly of queer history. So we happily, if we don't have the resources to get a huge donation, we try to direct the people willing to donate to other archives or libraries. And we're very happy that there are just straight archives also having queer history.
Let's move to the last probably section. I have a lot of questions actually, but and then especially about defining the field, but maybe we can define it how you work and how not to be everywhere, and then it's a lot. Even with queer moving images, as you say, it's like the servers get bigger and bigger and bigger. Where do you store them, and then how do you make I don't know, an order there as well, and then how do you make them open, and can everything be open? So it's a lot about that, but it's also like so let's move to the challenges and biggest issues which you faced, which you remember, and what is the biggest challenges you have in your work, and maybe what was the hardest and how it helped define your work. What lessons you have learned, and how it made you move one or other direction, and how do you envision the future? Let's start from the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, our biggest issue is lack of money. But then again, we're so young still, so, and it feels so obnoxious to say, but I don't think we've had any really big issues, except for the lack of money, which we're still trying to get. Because we got quite a big amount of money from Kulturbygg, and that's how it all started. And we were really lucky because it was our very first application. And then the project was meant to go on for 2 years, but then it synchronized perfectly with the pandemic. So and since the main objective with this archive was to engage with people in different ways, to have physical events where people could show up and talk to each other. I guess that was a lot of the. Then again, Kulturbygg was quite gracious to let us postpone our different physical events for a number of times. So eventually we got to make all the original events, but sort of ended for the founders for the first year. So I had to work for free for 1 or 2 years or something like that. But I would say that's probably our biggest issue. I would say how to get the funding. We're sort of on a hiatus, like two years back, but we've always done different like pop-up events, like these conferences or Cinema Queer and like that. Oh, the future. Yes. So we have there's we have another big project that we're trying to for quite a while, which is based on the concept of siring paths, the term within architecture where people make you have the intentions of the architect. People always transcribe So we want to use it as a queer concept within our work to the different what do you say, spatial deviances we all do in everyday life, and in what way that can spur. Okay. So yes, we're interested in deviances in spatial environment, but then again, like the next step is also, since we are sound archive, what kind of sonic deviance do we do in our everyday life, and how can we think on that in different critical ways? And so we want to, for example, we had one idea of an old cruising area in Halland. I don't remember the name of the region now, but to think of it in that ways, but also to think of it in more than human ways, like different actors interact with each other, like the birds or the wares. Yep.
I think the big challenge is like how to keep it ongoing and thinking all the time we can do it without money and with money, but kind of the same level somehow. So I think to keep people that's already been in Sápmi doing stuff, to have it like a lust-based archive, that everyone work in different ways from lust, to have the a happy time together in Sápmi, so we can continue the work, because money is really hard question, and because of the culture down, the hard situation right now. So that's the thing I think of most thing going on without money. And I think we are quite a lot of people active now, like 20, 30 people that do different things. And if everyone do small parts, we can keep on. So we right now are really a few, and have so little of procents working, but we do quite a lot. We have events every week, the people coming to Sápmi with questions and want to be volunteering, and so that's the thing we try to organize somehow to collectively have it ongoing in this way. So I think the big challenge now. And about the future, yeah, I think we keep on like this. It seems that we are having requests, so we know we do a good work somehow. We meet people all over and move around. So, and I forgot to present the Karin Kabailat here. Yeah, we'll have the next Nightfall in 21st of November, and then we dip into Palestinian and Lebanese filmmaking here in Sweden.
Great. So sorry to just repeat, money is our main problem, and we'd like to think of like, oh, what difficulties do we have? Try to think of some cute anecdote, that some mishap, but actually money is the greatest problem, and not just because we would like to have resources to do the archival work, but also because we live in a society that makes lack of money difficult for people in many different ways. And for example, the person doing the interviews with the newcomers didn't tell us Sweden ideally in the world have gotten unemployment from Curab in order to stay. We didn't have money, they couldn't find other work, and had to go back to Lebanon, which right now is horrific to think about. So, and the future, hopefully, will keep us moving. Some emotions that we find fulfilling.
Very short. In the recent year, we have spent a lot of time meeting bigger construction or building companies in the Stockholm area, because the interest in the pink money is huge. And we were trying to find a good location for it. But in the end, we talk about money and capability and are we really covered? Because we haven't that experience in having a huge museum, and it's not that easy to setting up a museum. So I should be very honest, we have really rethink this question, but we spent a lot of time in meeting those actors, and often ended up that it went good to start those discussions without a very good ground. And therefore, I'm very positive for the moment. In Stockholm, there is a huge discussion at the moment of a House of Q. It's a man called Peter Sandqvist that is very active, and we have met him, and it's a building in Värtahamnen, at the harbour, perhaps you should say, in Stockholm, and we are very interested in discussion, a place where we could future get together, trying our own separate ways, because this collecting of money, my hopefully wish is that we started with a goal. What do we really want to achieve, or what is our goal? And money is just a way of getting to the goal. Sometimes it takes a longer time, sometimes quicker, but I really mean we shouldn't spend those hours in just being worried for money. We should try to, we should share our best experience, how to get money and how to achieve better goals together. So I think.
Okay, I have a positive sign, and it's really, really nice to hear that the presentations activated your discussions very much. There was a lot of buzz around your table, so who would like to share what they were talking first?
Downstairs.
No, I wanted to share because I actually have a question. But because we came into talking about stage fear, we actually came off the subject. And then now we a little bit raised the question of financing and money. But I've been thinking about, because recently, maybe it was even yesterday on the radio here in the National Broadcast Radio, they talked about private financing and business coming in, financing. I spent quite some time in the States, and you can withdraw, even if you go to Goodwill and give your clothes, you can take off the money from your taxes. And of course, it's interesting for a lot of businesses to put money into welfare and cultural. Not enough, but much more than here. So I'm thinking, would it be interesting for you to change that, so money given to organizations or new museums would come from private money, because I think maybe it would be quite a possibility, because there are some rich people within the LGBTQ, and it's like you say, it's pink money. So how do you reflect around that? Am I supposed to ask a question like that?
Maybe we can collect a few questions and then we answer all of them at once, because we have only 10 minutes. So.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentations. Funding, but I was thinking also rents for everything. It's a huge issue now, because also Dramaten, the Royal Dramatic Theatre and the Opera and etc. So everything is doubling up now. and for smaller theaters and organizations, etc., etc. So of course it's good to have someone rich, but there was a debate in Stockholm last week with the Minister of Culture, who also said that you need to bring in private money. So I was thinking, where could that money come from? Okay, there are possibilities, of course, and I don't know anyone rich, but it's I would love to. Yeah. But I was thinking about the Unstraight Museum, because that project, it's a classic mecenate system. That there is someone actually who is willing to come in. Often people who have money, who want to donate to culture. I was thinking like Robert Weil and others, they have specific, it's only the performing arts, or it's only the arts, visual arts, so then there is the classic music, etc. So, but the thing is that those of us who come from this social democratic back in the days that Sweden used to be, we always thought that it was also the responsibility of the state actually to guarantee both for the free field, cultural field, but also of course for the state institutions. So private money is not reliable. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand, because I understand your point, because no, I don't want to polarize. It is just a question that we are encouraged to go that way. So it's a more a thing. Even a small space costs money, actually. So money is always the issue. More a comment.
Anyone else?
Why do some people connect? So
You can answer. Yeah, maybe some questions will come.
Yes, so many. Speaking for myself, not for the board of Curab officially, I'm happy to take any money, but we always have to think about the conditions that might come with money. Like, does someone just want to throw money at us? Be my guest, we'll take it. But if they want to, like, oh, could you change this? Could you focus on these topics? Could you? It might be good suggestions, but it might be suggestions that we're not willing to participate in. So money, fine, but the conditions surrounding the money is always very important.
I think it's 3 years ago we had a meeting called Sápmi Future meeting, where we opened up to people to come to our place and just talk about future and how to survive. And at that meeting we decided to write letters to rich gay people. We haven't sent any out, but we collected a list of names. So we have some people we want to grab soon. Also, the other thing is we have the programs circulating. We never ever show anything from Sápmi without getting the artist paid. So it's a circulation, but this year we started to take 10% from that money to administration. And last year it was almost 300,000 Swedish kronor from just selling programs and selling like distributing the pieces. So now we had at least hopefully 10% from that to Sápmi. And the next thing is that we always have donation possibilities at all events, from bar and from the entrance thing. And we always have that in the black box behind the stage. And we have never used it yet. So I think it's quite a lot. So we will maybe survive a half a year from that money or something.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Olov here. I would say I also speak only personally, not representing the archive here, but I think the idea of private funding or private money gives me personally the ick, because it's always conditioned in some way. If it's not, then yeah, maybe, but then it often also turns into like a sponsorship or something like that, which I would say would ruin the foundations of our idea of what the archival pink noises should be, or could be. And I think also the tendency of smaller initiatives grasping for private money is also symptomatic of a state that doesn't show enough interest of these kinds of initiatives. I think there's like a political incitement to actually start valuing these kinds of works that we do, and I think tax-funded money is probably the way to go. Yeah.
I think like this, of course we should depend on the state or the region or the local society that we live in, that they should support us with money. But you also know that the political organization changes over time. So we see it in Sweden for the moment. It's getting lesser and lesser money to culture. So that's also a problem that I want to address. But in a state of mind, I'm open for private money, and I'm not open for everything. But I also think that, just to make an example, think of if we have a good co-founding of pink money in our own queer community, it could also be a solid part of finance. So that I address the finance problem, I mean that we always start talking about money and not the goal. And therefore I also would like to return to what is our main goal? What do we want to achieve? And not starting it, it's just 100 crowns. So we didn't reach to Gothenburg. We ended up in Södertälje this year. I mean, you should have a goal and fight for it and find different finances. We have a quite good community, and they talk about DINK, so double income, no kid money, in at least the gay community. So I think we have to be open for alternative finance ways. So that's my point of view.
Thank you. And a couple more comments, not about money maybe. It's an important topic apparently, but...
No, that was good.
Thank you. So not about money, but about preservation. And thank you for your talk. Very interesting and fantastic initiatives, all of them. And I must say that on telling about having to turn down artifacts, people wanting to donate to the Unstraight Museum, it really breaks my heart. So I was thinking about how, and I would like to hear a little bit more about the cooperation Curap has with other institutions, but because I think making formalized cooperation with other institutions is probably the way to go. But then again, I'm sitting right next to a museum director here, and she tells that that they don't have the resources to collect material. So, and I think that goes for a lot of museums, that the kind of collection has stopped. So history stops in 1975, and the resources for collecting stopped, or whenever. So I think it is a bigger issue for the whole cultural sector. But for me, the preservation of the material that you have already collected and are offered is so crucial. So it would be a catastrophe if all the material from all your project at some point disappeared. So kind of making a plan for the preservation for all future for the material you have collected and are offered is something that I think is really important.
Okay. Sorry, I had to run out for collecting the food for lunch. But I just overheard when I got back that you, Arne, mentioned about that you couldn't be, the Unstraight Museum couldn't take a donation to come, a collection to come. But we are a few persons that has been talking about how to solve that problems. There's loads of private collectors, not just gay males, but also lesbians and other sorts of people, non-binaries, and all in between. And that has been having an ongoing discussion for some years now, how to manage this. And there are quite a few museum directors that are queer in Sweden, and also engaged in both private museums, municipality museums, and state-owned museums. And what we were thinking is that we could have a database with a private collectors' donations that can be squeezed in here and there in the magazines in different museums, but kept together, thematic and by names. And I'm talking about art now, but can be stored here and there, kept together in a database, thematic, and in whatever tags that are needed. And so people who want to donate their babies, their baby collections, their dearest art, can do that. And instead of seeing it getting sold and spread by their, cousin's daughter's child, or whatever is there to inherit in the end of the time. So, but we are going to take that initiative after this conference and after this network report that I'm responsible for. And then we are going to, get going with that project. So it's going to be like an Unstraight, what is it called? Stiftelse? Foundation? Yes, eventually, just ways.
Okay, so we are out of time, so I will give the microphone for the last time for all of you to comment or to respond.
We have a plan, or at least it's stipulated in our statutes that this collections will be taken care of. Yeah.
That is a fantastic. That is a happy.
We have not maybe solved it, but we have this newly bought Finnish database that we at least keep going with the digital things, and we have also a physical smaller archive based in Sápmi space right now. So I hope that one will be taken care of more, and we have like 5 queer archivists that built their own group inside Sápmi, so they are working with that now.
Yeah, we have this project that I was talking about that we still really want to do, so we'll make it happen somehow. And I can also say that if you have some form of queer cultural production in sonic formats, you can just go into our website and email us or talk to me if you want to contribute to the archive. It's rosabrus.nu. It's pink noise in Swedish.nu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank you for raising the question. It's so important, and I'm so glad, Pia, that you gave a very good futuristic idea how to solve it. So I thought thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for this talk. We would like to give everyone a little gift bag as a thank you and as a reminder to keep your archive and to possibly donate it to Curator or anywhere else. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.